What have you seen about what it takes to be a point guard within this system? Like, what are the things that you're like, all right, I have this, and what are the things I need to keep adding to be a point guard on this team?
I feel like, honestly, I have everything. I just got to keep going at it every day. Obviously, I'm not going to have everything perfectly, but I feel like overall I've been working, and I just got to put it all together. And the more experience I get, the more comfortable I get, and it'll get way easier for sure.
The Minnesota Timberwolves have now played 6 games this season, and their rookie and 8th overall pick in the draft, Rob Dillingham, has only played a total of 3 minutes of regular season basketball. Not because he's injured, but because it's the coach's decision. This comes as a surprise to many because a few months ago, shortly after he was drafted, many were talking about him as a player who could make an immediate impact and potentially be the steal of the draft.
If I had to say who won the draft to me was the Minnesota Timberwolves.
You know who I think won the draft, though? It's the Timberwolves won the draft.
No, they most definitely won the draft.
Getting Rob Dillingham, that's the piece they was missing.
So, what's going on in Minnesota? We can point to a few things like his lack of physical tools when it comes to guarding the pick and roll, but if he was on another team in the league, like say the Chicago Bulls, he would probably be getting more playing time, even if it was just like limited minutes, and that's why I believe that this whole situation has more to do with Minnesota's plans. So far, just 8 players on the Timberwolves roster have been playing significant minutes, and there's also Joe Ingles who's playing about 5 minutes per game. Timberwolves coach Chris Finch had shared that the coaching staff hopes to finalize a 10-man rotation, and with 30 or 4 Josh Minot making his season debut against the Spurs, in which he played 10 minutes, it lets us know that unless there's a major change like a trade or an injury, Rob won't consistently be in the rotation and that he won't be playing significant minutes, at least not in this season. And that already raises some concerns for Rob Dillingham in Minnesota and what to expect from him going forward. But maybe some of these issues were already there right from draft night. Be sure to like and subscribe. Now let's get into it. I'm not sure how many of you remember this, but on draft night, many NBA fans were waiting to see where Rob Dillingham would land in the lottery for a couple of reasons. Rob is one of the most exciting players in this draft class, as he had shown in the last couple of years, going back to his time at the Overtime Elite, where he first got on the radar of many fans with his incredible handle and electrifying play.
Here we go. This is oh my God. Now he looked at too. Nate! Oh, Nate! My God!
But the reason he's in the league today isn't just because of that, but it's because of the incredible college campaign that he had at Kentucky, where he proved that his game is not just flashy, but that it can translate to winning basketball on a big stage like the SEC, where he averaged 15 points, nearly 4 assists, and a steal per game. But most impressive to many was his shooting with 47.5% from the field and 44% from 3-point range, which showed that he was an NBA-ready prospect. That was enough to land him in the lottery in this year's draft, and on draft night, many fans were still waiting to see where Rob was heading because there was a possibility that he could land on the Spurs, which would have created one of the most electrifying young duos in the league with him and Victor Wembanyama.
Let's talk a little bit about the San Antonio Spurs. Yeah, what do you think watching someone like Victor Wembanyama play? What would it like to be playing alongside him?
I mean, it would be amazing.
The San Antonio Spurs select Rob Dillingham from the University of Kentucky.
For a second, it looked like it actually happened, but soon after his name was called, the Minnesota Timberwolves traded for him. This also created some excitement in NBA fans because to the average basketball fan, Rob and Anthony Edwards sounds like a show to watch every time they step on the court. And it also made some sense as a move that was positioning Minnesota to have a young point guard who could run the offense for the second unit in the meantime, while being mentored by Mike Conley to run the main unit in the future, since the 37-year-old Conley won't be in the league for many more years to come.
A guy that can score off the bench. They needed a young point guard, but they also needed a scorer off the bench that can help AE, and he can get buckets.
And now he about to go play behind Mike Conley.
But a part of me was confused by this trade because the Timberwolves were just coming from the Western Conference with a solid roster that looked like it didn't need much change, especially through the draft. So trading for Dillingham didn't make much sense in that regard, but it was also a bit confusing because he's a player who needs the ball a lot in his hands in order to thrive. We saw this in the preseason where he had his best performances, like his 15-point and 7-assist game against Denver, and then a 21-point performance against the Lakers. In each of those games, he played over 20 minutes, and he also combined for 34 shots in those 2 games. With how ball dominant the other core pieces of the Wolves offense are, like Ant and now Julius Randle and Mike Conley, who's their starting point guard, you just knew that Rob wasn't going to keep playing that way, especially since he had a couple of games where he really struggled with his efficiency. So when you factor all that in, you see that Rob Dillingham was positioned to be a bench role player at best as soon as he was drafted. But at the moment, he hasn't even been playing a bench role, and it makes you wonder why. In addition to his struggles with shooting the ball, his defense is also a bit of an issue. At about 6'2" and 165, Rob is a bit of a defensive liability, and one thing Chris Finch hangs his hat on is defense. The Timberwolves led the league in defensive rating last season, and you know that they hope to continue that dominance, and it's exactly why they've invested so much in Rudy Gobert. But now with the loss of Karl Anthony Towns, the team has also taken a hit on the defensive boards, and at the moment, one thing that's being emphasized is rebounding from the guards on the team.
The defensive level's got to go up. I mean, you know, our smalls have got to rebound.
As we know, however, that isn't really Rob Dillingham's calling card, and his size also doesn't allow him to be played in games for just that purpose. And we know that he can handle the ball, but that doesn't necessarily make a player ready to run an offense if they're not adept to the offensive schemes in the way that the coaching staff expects them to be. And this is also something that Rob Dillingham talked about.
What's the next thing you want to kind of accomplish and like kind of build on, I guess, going into this season here?
Really just knowing everything so I can like really just run the floor, knowing what plays to run when they're running certain type of defense, when they're switching.
Unfortunately, what this means is that what Rob can currently provide to the Timberwolves is not what they need from him because they're getting it from other stars. And what the team could use at the moment, which is rebounding and defense, is not what he can provide at an elite level. So the fit is a little bit problematic, and it has been from the start, because if you think about all the other players that Rob Dillingham was compared to coming into the draft, you see that Minnesota was never an ideal situation for his development. Some of the players that scouts compared him to were Kemba Walker and Brandon Jennings, whom younger NBA fans might not be familiar with. Personally, I see a lot of flashes of Darius Garland in Rob's game as well, and I think that he can develop into that kind of player. And Garland, much like Dillingham at the moment, was said to be a defensive liability mostly due to his lack of size, and he also had some struggles with his efficiency back in his rookie season. He was even dubbed the worst player in the league by the end of his rookie season, but the Cavs were patient with him because his talent was clearly there, and he eventually learned through those mistakes and became an all-star. But what he had that allowed him to develop into that player that he is today is something that the Timberwolves can't really afford to give to Rob, and that's the freedom to play and learn through his mistakes. With Rob Dillingham, his situation is actually quite the opposite of what it was for Garland, because the Timberwolves just came from the conference finals, and so naturally their goal this season is to take that next step and reach the finals, or at the very least be the same team that they were last year. And for a team that has such high expectations, it's no surprise that they're not willing to let Rob Dillingham play important minutes, especially at a time when they're having a rough start to the season, but it also makes you wonder why they traded for him in the first place. There is a possibility that he was drafted as a project player that will take time to develop, by taking that time to get him stronger while also polishing up his point guard skills. But what makes this whole situation a bit concerning is that the Timberwolves haven't developed much of their young talent in the past couple of years. Since 2020, when they landed Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, they haven't been able to see it through with the development of their other rookies. Outside of Josh Minott, their other rookies have all ended up in the G League, or they've been traded within a couple of seasons. We can only hope that that won't be the case with Rob, but at the moment, there seems to be an issue with that in Minnesota. Let me know what you think about this whole Rob Dillingham situation in the comments. Is it too early to start reacting to this, or should we be a little bit worried? Be sure to like and subscribe, but until next time,